This video is brought to you by PrizePicks. I have seen over this offseason something that I've seen at a higher volume this year than I've ever seen before. So I thought this would be a good time to address it, right? During the offseason when I have the extra video slots to spare because the Browns aren't really doing much. And look, it's July 15th, and we're not talking about anybody, knock on wood, being arrested. We're not talking about anybody getting injured in some kind of freak accident. So far, so good with the summer break. I think we're like 10 days out till training camp, and everything's going pretty easy breezy. The Browns aren't getting in trouble. We love this. Last year about this time, I think Quincy had got arrested. And that whole situation had started, right? So as long as we avoid that, so far, so good. But since, fortunately, we're not talking about stuff like that, I have room to talk about more meta topics, which is the perception of my optimism, specifically this offseason this year, because I've noticed it more this offseason than I've noticed it in any of the other off seasons that I've covered with the Cleveland Browns. And I've noticed that people think that I am significantly more negative about this team than I have been before, which I find interesting because me personally, I think I'm at the same place that I've been at for the last couple of years with the Cleveland Browns, kind of hoping that they could be competitive, but understanding that they're not going to be likely to be a playoff team. Like, it's possible, but they're probably aiming for 6 to 8 wins. This is exactly where I was last year with the Cleveland Browns, but like the reception on that is a lot more hostile this year than it was last year, which I find interesting, right? I find it interesting because it kind of gives me an insight on how the audience views me, you guys at home. And it gives me insight on, where I'm differing with general opinion about the Cleveland Browns, because even though I don't think the Browns win-loss record is going to be much different than what the consensus is right now, I think the consensus for Browns fans is that the Browns are probably going to win 5 to 8 games. I think I'm at like 7 to 8 with this team. I think they can get to 7 or 8 wins. So I'm a little above consensus there. There are a couple of areas, big ticket areas, more visible areas where I'm actually below consensus. And that's not usually the normal, right? And those two areas are my opinions on the Myles Garrett trade. As far as like online consensus, I am a little lower than the online consensus in Cleveland. I think I'm where most people who watch the NFL are with that trade. But online opinions in Cleveland, more people were more positive about that trade than I was, most certainly. And with the quarterback competition, I think more people are willing to engage with that quarterback competition, and I can't find myself the energy to engage with what I don't feel like is going to be a compelling competition for this team's future. So those two areas, despite everything else I feel about the rest of the roster, I'm not where consensus is. And despite the fact that still overall about the team, I'm still on the glass half full side with this football team. So one of the things I think is interesting to talk about when it comes to a subject as meta as this is kind of like how I view it, right? I know how you guys might view it, and you ask 100 different people, you might get 100 different answers. But how do I view this? How do I view what my job is? And the way I view this is my job is to be honest about the Browns, but not just honest, constructive, right? A lot of times you'll run into people who are honest, right? But they're really just being assholes. They just point out flaws. They offer no way to fix it. They don't have the energy to fix it. There's a clip from Inside the NBA that I always go back to when it comes to how I talk about players, right?
Question. Yeah.
What's the difference between criticism and coaching?
Charles, you're out of shape and you need to get better. That's coaching. But if I'm just looking at you and go, well, that's an ugly suit and you're a fat butt.
That's criticism.
See, listen.
See, you felt the difference.
And it hits different, right? Because one way of delivering that information is constructive. Hey, I need you to do these things better. I know that these things aren't going well, but they can be fixed. The other one is just throwing out insults. And a lot of times people who are honest can sometimes catch themselves just being critical and cynical, right? So I try not to view the Browns through that lens. I understand that. I've been a Browns fan my entire life. I know that there's going to be spurts where the team's not going to be good if I want to do this job as long as I want to do this job. You know what I mean? I know that this team's going to have ups and downs because right now they don't have like a long-term quarterback situation. So for me, it wouldn't be fun or entertaining to look at this team and not view them through a constructive lens. So I always try to view them through that. Whether you agree with my opinion about a player or not, if I come on here and talk about a player is good, I'll tell you why I think that player is good, and I'll make the argument statistically. I'll make that argument with tape. If I come on here and tell you a player that you like is bad, I'll tell you why I think that. I'll break it down to you why I think their effect on the team has been negative, what they could do better, where they're going wrong, what my opinion is based on the tape and the stats. I'll give you that. You know what I mean? I'm not just going to throw out this player sucks, this player's mid, this player's trash, he has no aura. I'm not going to throw out Twitter level analysis on here and just leave it at that, right? If you don't like my opinion about a quarterback, I would hope that you could respect that I at least brought to you a full argument of why it is that I don't like that quarterback as much as you might like that quarterback, because I think that there are some flaws there that are going to affect their ability to be successful long-term in the NFL. That's how I view it. You know what I mean? I'm not just going to sit here and be negative about Shedeur just to be negative, but I'm not just going to be positive just to be positive. If I cannot justify what I think with things that I can show, then I'm not going to sit here and just shoot from the hip. And that's been my approach with every quarterback, every player. Every year I've done this. Obviously, I've gotten better at it as I've gone forward. At least I think I've gotten better at it, more thorough, learn more information, learn better things about how to evaluate quarterbacks, learn from my own mistakes, times that I was wrong about players, times that I was wrong about certain attitudes players had that did or did not bug me. I try to learn, I try to evolve, I try to get better at everything as we go on. But again, my goal isn't optimism. My goal isn't pessimism. My goal is just to be honest about what I think. It's not even to be right. Obviously, I would love to be right about everything that I say. Everybody who speaks for a living would love to have that luxury. But you can't be right about everything because you can't see every variable that can go in your way, right? Like there are plenty of people who are wrong about Tom Brady. Doesn't mean that all those people didn't know what they were talking about. It's just they didn't see it coming for obvious reasons. Right? It's a lot of stuff that I don't see coming or that I'm wrong about or that, I think aren't going to be a problem and it is a problem. A lot of that happens, but I try to see as much as I can see coming and I try to do all the work that I can. Which brings us back to the question that we had the original video, right? Kind of explained how I go through things, how some people may or may not view me, but the real question is, should I be more optimistic about this football team than I actually am right now? Should I feel better about this football team than I do? And I don't think the answer to that question is simple. Why? I'll explain it after I thank my sponsor, PrizePicks. PrizePicks is a fun way to earn cash while you watch your favorite teams. No complex betting rules. Just pick more or less on a few player stats and lock in your lineup. Here are my picks for this upcoming season, AFC North edition. Jimmy Bernard, I have less than 475. This has to do with volume available in Pittsburgh's offense. Quincy Judkins, I have over 975. Browns improved line. I think the run game is going to be better with it. Chase Brown, under 900 yards. Joe Burrow equals less rushing yards usually for the Bengals offense. Mark Andrews, more than 400 475 yards, Lamar's going to need a safety blanket. Check to see if PrizePicks is available in your state. You could follow me on the app at Quinn_C to see all my lineups. Download the PrizePicks app today. Play $5 and get $50 in lineup to download the app using the link in the description. The reason I don't think that answer is simple is because that answer is layered, right? The truth is that I'm optimistic about a lot of things when it comes to the Cleveland Browns. I'm excited to see the future of the 2025 draft class. I'm excited to see what Quincy Judkins looks like with a revamped offensive line. I'm hopeful that the wide receiver selections that we made in this draft class will make a big impact to this offense. I'm hopeful that Todd Monken and the change there could make some massive headwaves and changes that have needed to happen on the offensive side of the ball all year. I'm hopeful that the defense, despite the fact that they lost Myles Garrett, still going to be able to maintain a top 8 level of play. And ultimately, I think this team is capable of surprising people around the league and maybe winning more games than people think, somewhere around the range of 7 to 9 games, which if you go from trading Myles Garrett and being at where the Browns are right now to making a 3 to 5 win improvement or 3 to 4 win improvement, I think that's a significant jump for a football team and something for a team to be proud of. But there are some things that I'm kind of tired of as a Browns fan, as a lifelong Browns fan, that I see this team continuing to do. And one of those things is the continuing of throwing late round draft picks at the quarterback problem, hoping that they can get extremely lucky and thinking that that's going to solve all of their problems. Part of that frustration is the Browns' fault because of how they ended up in this situation. Part of it's not. Part of it's just they took a big swing on Deshaun Watson, and now they kind of have to bide their time until they can take their next swing, and this is just part of that process. But regardless of whether it's the Browns' fault or not, it's frustrating. It's not fun to talk about the Browns' quarterback position. Think about it like this. Some people have said that my tone about the Browns offense has been much more negative and mean towards the Browns over the last couple of years. And maybe there's some truth to that, but I don't think it's not rooted in truth, in the fact that I'm just being honest about the team. Because, maybe the last couple of years, I haven't been the most optimistic about the Browns offense, but also consider that I started doing this in 2018. And let's just walk through the quarterback hope from 2018, right? 2018, Baker Mayfield, there was a lot to be excited about, a lot to be hopeful for. 2019, there was a lot to be excited about. There was a lot to be hopeful for. Baker Mayfield onto a second year. 2020, we wanted to see Baker Mayfield recover from a down year, but hey, we made some improvements on the offensive line. Maybe that can improve Baker Mayfield. 2021, we're thinking, Baker just came off of his best season of his career. We can improve off of that and take this formula that worked in 2020 and push it and be a real championship contender. In 2022, no more Baker Mayfield, but the Browns just traded for somebody that everybody's telling me is a top 5 quarterback. So let's see what this top 5 quarterback can do. 2023, the top 5 quarterback was rusty, but hey, let's see what he can do now that he's going to have a whole offseason under his belt. And then he plays okay in 2023. So there was hope going into 2024. And then after 2024, we get to the last 2 seasons where there's been a notable difference in the amount of hope that the Browns have at the quarterback position. See, for 6 seasons, we have felt the warm touch of hope at the quarterback position, which changes how you view your team's outcome. Yeah, I'm going to think that the Browns have a better chance to be a playoff team or maybe a surprise contender when I think that there is a legitimate reason for their quarterback position to take a leap. But that's just not where the Browns have been since the end of the 2024 season, since the end of the Deshaun Watson experiment, or at least the end of our delusion over the Deshaun Watson experiment, right? Like it died for everybody in 2024. And since then, we've been throwing late round draft picks at the problem and phrases like, well, maybe he could be insert quarterback that we all don't think is really that good and being carried, right? Like that's kind of where we've been. We went from hoping that Baker Mayfield, a number 1 overall pick at the quarterback position, can live up to his full potential as that draft pick, and arguing with Bengal fans about who's the better quarterback between him and Joe Burrow, to arguing about Deshaun Watson being a top 5 quarterback and how he was on the same path as Patrick Mahomes, to arguing about who we should start between a broken Deshaun Watson and a Shedeur Sanders who couldn't throw more touchdowns than interceptions in his rookie campaign. Yeah, that's going to affect how I view the overall potential of the offense. That's going to affect my overall positivity for the football team at that point. And that's going to add to the perception that maybe I'm not the most positive guy, because again, my job isn't to be positive, it's to be constructive. And sometimes there's only things that are positive to say and very little constructive criticism to give. Other times, there's a lot of constructive criticism to give. And this is one of those times where it's a little bit more lean for the Cleveland Browns, and I don't have as much room for just compliments and good things and happy Philly stuff. And I got to talk about the stuff that they need to fix because it's a big problem. And look, I'm not trying to say it's all negative. There's reason to feel better about some of the big issues that the Cleveland Browns have had, right, when it comes to quarterback. Improved wide receiver play, hopefully improved wide receiver play, hopefully improved offensive line play, hopefully improved coaching could lead to a better result from the quarterback position. But keep in mind, we're projecting 3 different things to project a better outcome for one position. So it's a lot of variables in that. It's not guaranteed that all of those things converge the way that we're hoping. We're hoping, Mike, that the offense gets better with Todd Monken. And I think to a point, it's reasonable to expect that given how bad they were last year. I think we're hoping that the wide receiver room is better because we've invested in it, but there's a chance that that might not happen. And the offensive line is something that we're hoping gets better, and I think it will, but it might take some time. And who knows when all 3 of those things are going to converge at the right time in the right place for a quarterback to be able to benefit from it. It's just a lot of variables that aren't necessarily guaranteed to stack on top of each other all at the same time. Whereas with something a little bit more simple, like Quincy Judkins and the run game, it's like, yeah, the offensive line might take a little while there, but we saw Quincy establish himself as somebody who can be a plus level running back, despite the fact that he doesn't have a good offensive line. Whereas with the quarterbacks, there's nothing there to demonstrate to me that these were good players the last time that we saw them that simply needed better circumstances. They were players who were playing at the level of their circumstances, not necessarily playing above the level of their circumstances, which is unfortunate, but it's the truth, right? I want the Browns to solve the quarterback problem. If I was watching a tape of any of these quarterbacks, watching what I saw in practice and legitimately thought that they were franchise capable quarterbacks right now, I would be so deep into promoting that. I want nothing more than to feel that way about the quarterback room of the Cleveland Browns. But the truth is that I watch these guys a lot. I watch all the practice footage. I hear what people are saying, and quite honestly, I just don't have that takeaway. I don't feel like we have a franchise quarterback on the roster. Would love to be wrong. If I'm wrong, I will jump on board and say that I was wrong and start looking into what I went wrong with my evaluation of that player and adjust and give that player all the praise they deserve. It's never been something I've been afraid to do. But until we get there, all I really have to go off of is my work. And my work doesn't really indicate that that's what we have on the roster, so I can't lie about it. Am I optimistic enough about the Cleveland Browns? I think from my perspective, I'm perfectly glass half full enough. I think I'm going through this the same way that I've always gone it. I understand why some people are a little upset with the fact that I'm not the biggest fan of the Miles trade, or that I'm not the biggest fan of the quarterback room that they have right now. But I didn't come to those conclusions just to be negative or to be spiteful of the Cleveland Browns. I came to those conclusions because I love the Cleveland Browns, because I love the people who love the Cleveland Browns, because I love the city that the Cleveland Browns represent. And I want those people to go into this season with the most realistic set of expectations so that they can enjoy the season the most. Because when you get overhyped into a season and it's not what you wanted, that's going to make you miserable. I don't want that just so I can get an extra 10,000 views in July. But that's my 2 cents on this. I know this is a very meta topic. It felt weird having to talk about myself like this, but it is something that I've noticed and wanted to open up a forum of discussion on, because I have noticed people thinking that I've been pessimistic about this team this year. And I'm not pessimistic about the Browns in total. I still express some optimism here, but I'm also realistic about the players that I think need to improve, or the positions that I think need to improve, and the potential pitfalls that this team can fall under. Right now with this Browns team, they could win 8-9 games, in my opinion. They could lose a lot more, but we'll see what happens, and I'll be happy to cover it, whether we be surprised or disappointed. Y'all have a great day. Have an even better night. Peace.